Hello, and welcome back to the Fae Banner Review, where we talk about Edelgard, Dimitri, and Claude at least once a year. It truly isn't Fire Emblem Heroes without a yearly alt for each of them. Today, we have a brand new baby banner featuring a variety of 3 houses characters. Variety by 3 houses standards, not in general. And as per tradition, I will be using this coveted line graph that may or may not be a line graph at the end of the day to rank the brand new baby banner, as well as the circle graph that may or may not be a circle at the end of the day alongside it. Today's rankings will be based on how many surprising things the banner does, and if you want more 3 houses alts in your awesome video game, or if you want to make me a bit happy, then make sure to subscribe to the channel. Thank you, I'd really appreciate it. First up, we have Felix. You may remember him from less than a year ago as T Felix, who was just better Brave Felix. Now we have Young Felix, and you'll never believe what he does. The answer may not surprise you. Let's see. Felix comes with Priming Sword, which is a Canto Distance sword with 2 layers of slang. It grants Spectrum 15 during combat, 25 true damage, 15 true damage reduction, an additional 15 true damage reduction when a foe's special goes off, and at the start of the player phase or enemy phase, he grants Attack Liberate, Speed Liberate, Dodge, and Pulse Follow to himself and a target ally, and that target ally can either be a support unit or anyone with the highest speed stat. This is on top of his pure FB skill, Matchless Wolf, which grants Phantom Speed 7, 20% speed-based true damage and true damage reduction that also applies to AoE specials, an additional 20% speed-based true damage reduction when a foe's special goes off. It grants him another action after initiating combat and when not entering combat, and grants Potent Follow 100%. It's T Felix, but newer. I feel like I've said it's X but newer so much as of late, and I don't know if that's a me thing or just how unit design has been. It feels like it started with Legendary Diamant, but it could have been a bit earlier, I don't know. If anyone knows how many times I've said it so far, then let me know down below. But as for Felix, it's T Felix but newer. But how much newer, you may be wondering? Well, I think it's time we play everyone's favorite game, compare the low quality PNGs. You thought I was going to say heroes, huh? Hey guys, me here, comparing 2 brand new skills, and by 2 I mean 1, and by 1 I mean I don't know, because they look exactly the same. However, they are not exactly the same, and I know this because, well, they have the exclamation point, so it's got to be different, right? They look the same, and they probably do the same thing for the most part, but let's find out exactly what makes them so different. So, looking at the first 2.5 paragraphs, we can see that there's basically no difference. The first paragraph is the same, the second paragraph is the same, the half of the third paragraph is basically the same, except there's no condition because we don't do that anymore. So what makes this Matchless Wolf and not True Lone Wolf? Well, if I were to get rid of all this stuff, just right here, when I get rid of that, see, now we got rid of all the same stuff, right? We got rid of the damage reduction, we got rid of the other stuff Felix does, but now we have the bottom half of the third paragraphs. This one has damage reduction piercing, and on the other end, we don't have that anymore. Instead, we have Potent Follow 100%. And besides that, it is the exact same skill with the exact same gimmick and the exact same other exact same things. Provided to you by IS. This has been whatever I decided to call this part of the video. Back to you, Z. Thanks, Z. This sucks. All they did was replace the damage reduction piercing with Potent Follow 100%, and that is a better effect, but that doesn't really change much for him in the end. Honestly, the one thing I like about him is his support, which isn't even that amazing as is, but you can speed match allies with this and give it out to multiple units. I'm not sure if that many units will need this support, but it's technically something you can do. But besides that, it really is just the same thing we got about 8 months ago or so with very little improvements. He's not unusable, but I can't imagine most people will want to use him. They really could have tried harder here. Felix also comes with Arc Rival, Duelist Blow, and a brand new, sorta new, C-Skill in Burst of Thunder, which grants extra movement at the start of the turn, grants upwards of Spectrum 6 during combat based on spaces moved, 5 true damage, 5 true damage reduction, and a special jump of 1 before their first attack. This is a really good skill, but I also don't like that this exists. Having more skill options in general is great, but this is just a strictly better version of Tempest Burst. That skill is less than a year old, by the way. It also debuted on T Felix. Man, their creativity is off the charts right now. I think they could have waited a bit longer before making Tempest Burst obsolete, but it is what it is. At least it's pretty stacked. Besides that, Arc Rival is good and Duelist Blow is also pretty solid. He has a lot of fantastic fodder to pass around overall, which is great because that's at least one thing I could say he's good at. Better something than nothing, I suppose. And other than that, that sure is Felix. It's the same unit that we got less than a year ago, but slightly better. If you need something newer to auto battle stuff, then he'll be fine for that job, I guess. The most appealing thing about this unit is his fodder, and it just being an upgraded T Felix kit is pushing it. But hey, it could be worse. You could be outshined by a demote on the same banner, but they would never do something like that. Next, there's Claude, and he's the demote that outshines Felix. In fact, he outshines the entire banner, but you're not supposed to know that yet. What could they have possibly done to make the demote the best unit here? Let's see. Claude comes with Hunting Bow, which is a slaying bow that grants allies Spectrum 5, a special jump of 1 on their first attack, and speed-based no follow-up when they're within 3 rows and columns of him. Claude himself gets Spectrum 15 during combat, attack speed penalty neutralization, 25 true damage, 15 true damage reduction, a special jump of 1 on his first attack, full no follow-up, and he could use Gambit Ashes and Dust style. Gambit Ashes and Dust style is a mouthful. Why is it this long? It allows Claude to attack from 3 spaces away, it inflicts gravity on the target and any adjacent ally after combat, and it can be used once per turn. On top of a PRF B skill in Collapse Star, which has built-in Canto distance, it inflicts -5 attack speed and defense on the foe during combat, grants 20% speed-based true damage in true damage reduction, nullifies guard effects, grants potent follow 100%, and when Claude initiates combat and is faster than the foe by 5 speed, he reduces the foe's first attacks to 1 damage, and after combat, he grants himself a status that increases speed checks by 10, as well as a brand new status in Collapse Star. And the Collapse Star status reduces the foe's first attacks to 1 damage when they initiate onto Claude if it's his first combat initiated by a foe. Oh, that's what they did. Well, good news, this isn't the same thing but newer. Bad news, this is some of the worst game design I've ever seen come out of Fae. A gimmick that reduces all damage to 1. Surely that won't set a bad precedent for the game moving forward. And not just the gimmick that reduces all damage to 1. He's fast, he has built-in no follow-up, and makes speed checks harder to achieve. The idea of getting around his first hit's damage reduction is not going to be feasible for a majority of the units in the game. You can't even debuff him either because he neutralizes speed penalties too. Him also having 6 ranged means he could set this gimmick up really easily, which really was the decision ever. I really don't get why player phase units have gotten as bulky as they have. I get not wanting them to blow up immediately, but it really isn't a good feeling not being able to dent them at times. When your best tank is your nuke, maybe something has gone wrong. And the scariest part of it all, he has potent follow 100%. Yeah, I feel like every PRF this book has had this effect. It's obviously good, but we really can't go one banner without it, huh? I have to wonder if this is their way of slowly nerfing Reflex, although ironically he may want Reflex himself assuming it works with his reduction. If that's the idea, then they really could have found some other method surely, but also that's just how Fae is, they almost always work in extremes. But on the bright side, he's a demote at least, which means everyone could get an easy copy to one of the best player phase units in the game now. Maybe that's not as bright as I thought. Claude also comes with Dragon Fang and Attack Speed Insight Hone. Yep, and other than that, that sure is Claude. This unit is obscenely broken, and I don't really get why they made him a demote. He has amazing range and absurd amount of damage reduction, and his support exists. Yeah, it exists, it's fine. He's fast on top of that, which makes the prospect of getting around his damage reduction a lot lower. This Claude is going to be a menace, even on the basis of having a lot of range. Can't wait to see how this gets power crept. And then there's Ingrid, and she's the rearm this time around. She brings a brand new lance, which is great because the last lance we got was less than 6 months ago. It was about time they got something modern to use. That's not even a joke, it really wasn't that amazing in Arcane. Let's see. Ingrid comes with Arcane Thorn, which is a slaying lance that grants 6 visible defense and res, truly incited, and preempt pulse to herself and any ally within 2 spaces at the start of the player phase or enemy phase. It grants Spectrum 15 during combat, 25 true damage, 15 true damage reduction, an additional 15 true damage reduction when a foe's special goes off, and 50% damage reduction piercing. And as for Ingrid exclusive stuff, she has Proper Knight, which has built-in Kanto distance, inflicts -7 attack speed and defense, sabotage, and discord on the closest foes and any foe within 2 spaces of them after taking an action. If Ingrid uses an assist skill, after using her Kanto, she can take another action and she re-enables her Kanto. It grants upwards of Spectrum 11 during combat, upwards of 12 true damage and 12 true damage reduction based on how many spaces she moved or the foe moved to enter combat. It grants a special jump of 1 before her first attack and first follow-up attack, and grants potent follow 100%. Whoa, it's T. Ingrid! But newer, a melee cavalry unit with action eco, a PRFA skill, and provides a lot of support. Their creativity knows no bounds. Although, unlike Felix, there's definitely more here to point out. One difference between them is that this Ingrid can Kanto twice a turn, similarly to that of Winter Sather. It may seem like a small and somewhat inconsequential difference, because it is a small and somewhat inconsequential difference, but it can matter in some cases. The one thing T. Ingrid couldn't really do all that well was make use of shadow skills, because she would only activate her Kanto after taking another action, assuming she was using an assist. This Ingrid being able to do that after the first action is really great. That being said, I think the difference in support is going to make or break the ult. It's reflex, dodge, and no follow-up versus truly incited, preempt, pull, sabotage, and discord. And to be fair, the bonuses and penalties this new one can provide is really solid. All of these bonuses combined could lead to a lot of stat swings, and it's especially nice since this Ingrid doesn't have to take an action to give out all of her support. It means it's immediately useful. However, Reflex is still one of the best statuses in the game currently. A lot of units rely on Reflect to get a bunch of damage out. I think it will come down to support preference in the end, but I wouldn't say this Ingrid is that much better than their T version anyway. However, on the arcane side of things, this is a very clear upgrade over Crimson. I really like the newer arcanes. They blend in with PRFs and convince me for half a second they're remotely on the same level, but they're not even that bad since they also get the copy and pasted combat effects and 2 bonus statuses, and the ones this arcane gives out are really good. Truly Incited is a nice way of providing a bunch of stats, and Preempt Pulse's special jump support. Even selfishly, it's a weapon that can basically provide Spectrum 23 to themselves, which is a fair bit of stats. You could do so much worse than this. You could be Arcane Crimson. Don't you feel silly for pulling for it? I sure do. Ingrid also comes with Reposition, Attack Speed Favor, Attack Speed Outcry Dull, and a brand new special in Shatter Slash, which is just Waning Shot but for swords, lances, and axes. That's fine, yeah. It's another special option and inflicts attack and defense debuffs, which is pretty cool. Not really much else to say on that. Attack Speed Favor, while spammed a lot recently, is still one of the quintessential B skills we have in the game, so more of that is always nice. Ingrid's kit overall is really good, and the best part is, you could still use Ingrid after foddering her. That's okay, you can keep it. And other than that, that sure is Ingrid. It's the same unit that we got less than a year ago, but with slight differences. I think what this Ingrid can do in comparison to T is nice, but Reflex really is too good of a status. That said, it really is just a copy and pasted alt more or less, so she'll still be fine as a unit. Really, the main draw is her arcane. It's a really solid arcane to pass around, and a lot of units would really appreciate it. But also Johanna Lance. I can only cope so much with that weapon at this point. And last, and most certainly last, we have Edelgard and Dimitri, and they're the duo this time around. The lead is none other than Edelgard, which is nice because she only got an ult 3 months ago, and thankfully she's going to get 2 more ults this book because of the Shadows Cup and the Choose Your Legends harmonics. Man, I love this game sometimes. Anyway, Edelgard comes with Oath Dagger, which is a slaying dagger that inflicts -5 attack, defense, and res, 50% damage reduction piercing, and null miracle on foes within 3 rows and columns of her. She gets 11 attack, defense, and res during combat, 25 true damage, 15 true damage reduction, an additional 15 true damage reduction when a foe's special goes off, a guaranteed follow-up attack during combat, and she could use Gambit Impregnable Wall Stride Style. Gambit Impregnable Wall Stride Style is also a mouthful. Shorten the names next time, thank you. It reduces the foe's first attacks to 1 damage, grants potent follow 120%, reduces Edelgard's first attacks to 1 damage, and it can be used multiple times per turn. We will get back to that part shortly. Edelgard also has a PRFB skill in Vengeful Storm, which inflicts -7 attack and defense, exposure, and sabotage on the closest foes and any foe within 2 spaces of them at the start of the turn and after taking an action. It inflicts -5 attack and defense on the foe during combat, grants 20% defense-based true damage and true damage reduction, it grants 2 special jumps on her first follow-up attack, and after she uses her Kanto, she can take another action and her Kanto gets re-enabled, on top of a dual skill that grants another action and re-enables her Kanto. Whoa, it's Emblem Edelgard. but newer. You see, it's newer because instead of being a melee armor, she's a ranged armor. And not because of the other things in her kit that make me question how this got approved. I said it earlier in the Claude section, but I really don't like the gimmick of reducing attacks to 1 damage. I think it's a really dumb way of getting around reflex, and it's going to set a bad precedent. And on the topic of bad precedent, a style that can be used multiple times per turn. That's a really scary precedent, isn't it? Styles that can be used more than once is something that I figured they would do, but I also hope they wouldn't do. Assuming they were to hold back and limit what can be used multiple times a turn, it could be fine. Do you actually think they would hold themselves back? At least in Edelgard's case, I don't think it's the worst to be quite H, even when including her damage reduction thing. The main thing that's separating her from Claude in this instance is that she's really slow, so a lot more units should have a fighting chance against her. In a weird way, I think her speed stat is what's keeping her in check here. I think the biggest problem is that she's going to be relying on a guaranteed follow-up attack in her potent effect, which makes me wonder if she'll even be able to break through far saves half the time. At the very least, she's able to get around the Lucina ring very easily, but any sort of follow-up denial or no follow-up could be an issue, especially given her speed stat. One of the most common Aether defense units still is Brave Byleth, and he gives out no follow-up to everyone for free, so even slower armors can provide trouble if they're fast enough. Ironically, Edelgard may want reflex support because of that, just so her damage output's a lot better. That said, she's definitely a strong unit given what she already gets around. Her dagger status lets her get past traps, and having anti-miracle support means she doesn't have to deal with Valley. The amount of actions she gets on top of that means once the far save is taken out, she can just clean up the rest of a defense team. She'll definitely be a really good Gale Force unit for Aether Raids, just like Emblem is, and how Valentine's was. In Winter and Summer and Fallen, I love the same thing but newer. Edelgard also comes with Armored Flare and 2 new skills in Attack Defense Clear and Lookout Rush. Attack Defense Clear grants 10 attack and defense, 7 true damage, and nullifies guard when initiating combat or if the unit has a bonus active. It cancels bolt traps and heavy traps, and it reduces the hex trap check by 10 HP. Meanwhile, Lookout Rush has built-in Canto 2, Distance Swap, it grants 6 visible attack, extra movement, and true charge at the start of the turn if at max HP or if a foe is within 3 rows and columns of them. It grants 4 attack speed and defense during combat, and 5 true damage when initiating combat or within 2 spaces of an ally. Those aren't too shabby. It's dagger fodder, so limitations ensue, but they aren't that bad for what they are. Moving the Aether Trap negation effect into an A skill is really nice, and staggers have a lot more B skill options to work with. It can also stack, which is really funny if you do decide to run a Disarm Trap B skill just for clearing hex traps. I think once we get an attack speed version, it'll be a lot more desirable. And Lookout Rush is another lookout skill, which is fine. It's the first variant that grants true damage, so it's basically your more offensive leaning option of the bunch. It's not bad stuff overall, but you probably won't be able to fodder it that easily, but that would also require foddering Edelgard, who is a really good unit, and will probably get replaced in 3 months by Shadow's Edelgard, who will then get replaced by another dual Edelgard a bit after that. Aren't alts that do the same thing but better so wonderful? And other than that, that sure is Edelgard and Dimitri. She's another Gale Force armor, and despite doing the same thing she did the last 8 times, this one is at least somewhat unique, question mark? That's cope, isn't it? I like that she's a dagger unit since it helps her excel more at Aether Raid stuff. Being able to get around traps and Valley support is really strong, and her movement options are pretty cool too, thanks to Distance Swap. That said, it really is just newer Edelgard, which is unfortunately the running theme of the entire banner. She'll do her job well enough, I'd imagine, but Emblem isn't even that old and she still functions perfectly fine. I don't think you really have to go out of your way for this ult if you already have Emblem, but if you do grab this ult, then you can make clearing out defense teams a lot more free. And speaking of free, there's also the free stuff, and who doesn't like free stuff? This time around, we're getting young Eliwood as our Tempest trial unit. That really sucks. I know there isn't a direct comparison that can be made since everyone gets a PR off on these banners, but Eliwood really has nothing. He comes with Speed Defense Clash and Speed Defense Near Trace, which is really outdated at this point. In fact, it was outdated when they gave out a free copy of him last year. I think Hector would have been a way better choice since he comes with Defense Res Farsave 3, which is pretty solid fodder all things considered, but since there's nothing that can be compared here, Eliwood technically wins by default. Would you rather have 1 Eliwood manual or 2? There's also the Sacred Seals in dual range and close counter bow and dagger. The only one worth talking about here is close counter because it's another solid scoring Sacred Seal. You could also throw it on some units here and there for sure, assuming they could tank stuff well. If only we got one on this banner. Oh well. And overall, that sure is the free stuff, I guess. It's not that great overall, which is a shame because we could have gotten another potentially solid free-to-play unit to work with. We are 0-4 on this post-Tempest Trials change. Can we get much lower? And yeah, that sure is the banner. Okay, bye. And now that we've gone over the brand new baby units, I think it's time we rank the banner on the line graph that may or may not be a line graph at the end of the day. And would you look at that? The brand new baby banner has earned a 1 out of 10 on the line graph. And based on my understanding of the banner, I believe that it would be best fit somewhere around this area of the circle graph. There's a solid amount of inheritable skills potentially worth grabbing, but the unit strength is overall a lot lower compared to previous banners. That means less absurd than the recent absurd banners, and you may be wondering to yourself, how many orbs is it going to take to get the demote? And the answer is almost always more than you'd like to spend. But if you're wondering if the banner is worth summoning on, I would definitely consider summoning on this banner. It sounds backwards even suggesting that, considering I just said the unit strength on this banner is lower than previous banners not even 30 seconds ago. However, the only reason I think it's worth spending some orbs on this banner is because of Claude. Claude is the strongest unit on this banner and he's a demote on top of that, so it should be really easy to get a copy of him. Even on a budget, he's going to be doing so much that I don't think it's worth missing out on him unless you already have a bunch of 6 range units. And even if you do, he's still one of the best ones we have currently. I don't think it's worth missing out on him because of that. Besides that though, it really does feel like a fodder banner for the most part, barring Edelgard. Edelgard herself is pretty solid as an Aether-Aid's offense unit given her dagger status and the amount of Gale Forces she has baked into her kit. And that's not including all of the things she could disable and get around like Valley's Miracle, Reflect, Aether-Aid's traps, and so on. If you need a unit to make clearing Aether-Aid's offense teams a lot easier, then she'll probably do well enough at the job. Her fodder on the other hand is just okay, but Lookout Rush can allow infantry daggers to get extra range easily. Ingrid is definitely the fodder unit of the banner though, considering her rearm status, favor, and shatter slash. Her lance is fantastic since it has built-in truly incited and it can be given to allies. As a unit though, she's not really that great even with her extra actions. You may as well stick with T Ingrid since she gives out reflex, but again, it depends on the support you really care about. And Felix sure does exist. I would have said to stick with T Felix, but he sucks, so what can you do? He's basically the newer version of a unit that can make clearing dailies and PvE content a lot quicker, but otherwise he's also just a fodder unit. I definitely think the biggest draw here is Claude purely on the demote status, and it makes the banner worth considering. That said, I think the Emblem Lucina banner is worth prioritizing over this one no matter what. The banner lineup is fantastic and Lucina is an incredibly strong support unit. The ring is more of a bonus in my eyes because the unit does so much as is. Still, it has a lot more value than the baby banner does and it's worth summoning on if you didn't already. There's also going to be a new Heroes banner in over a week if you'd rather wait and see what that has first. That said, I'm not going to pretend most people are going to do that when Edelgard, Dimitri, and Claude are here. A majority of people care about them over almost anything else, which, duh, it's the Three Houses Lords. Besides that, there really isn't anything else worth summoning on, but it's not like we need more to choose from considering what's active. We only got so many orbs to work with each month. But yeah, if you need somebody like Claude, who is just very easily accessible, then I think it is worth spending some orbs here, TBH, 2BH, to be quite H. We still have 2 more guaranteed Edelgard alts this year, by the way. Better start saving, folks.
I am absolute.